So now, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, the Bills Roundtable is here. Years and years and years of people pounding the table asking, when is this show coming back? There's so much to discuss around our favorite football team. Well, we have delivered right over here on the Roundtable Sports Network. And I got to tell you, folks, we have a hell of an episode for you. Unfortunately, the main topic is going to be James Cook, followed by the high ankle sprain from Khalil Shakir. Along with the CVS receipt of injuries, this team has all but cursedly acquired during this training camp period. But I could not think of a better squad than the gentleman that I am about to introduce to you as we speak. Kevin just got booted out. Z-Bot, how you doing? Talk to me.
Dan the man, so good to be with you. So good to kick off the Bills Roundtable. Like you just mentioned, I wish our first show was about topics that weren't including the laundry list of injuries and a out of nowhere hold in from James Cook, but topics to talk about nonetheless, riveting topics. And I'm glad to be able to be a part of this. Very excited. A good crew here on the panel, a great crew tuning in. Appreciate everyone who's here for the first episode and is going to be here for the season. Should be exciting. Cannot wait.
And my boy Bills Bunker, who, by the way, I have been a big fan of him for quite some time, and he was highly requested to be a part of this show. Bills Bunker, Jake, how you doing, man? Talk to me.
I'm doing great, Dan, and it's a pleasure to be here on the Bills Roundtable. Obviously, James Cook, hold in, not the ideal topic, but it's a trending topic right now. It needs to be touched on, and this roundtable of Bills content creators, we're going to cover it to the best of our ability. Let's crush it.
Ad nauseum, man. And guys, listen, the fourth host is Kevin. It is his birthday. He wasn't here backstage. I came live and he was booted almost immediately. So I'm assuming he's experiencing some sort of technical difficulties. I anticipate that he will be back momentarily. Admittedly here, guys, I was completely unaware that when you want to stream on a brand new YouTube channel, that you need to give them access 24 hours before you are able to actually live stream on said channel. That is why the show is on the main Roundtable channel right as we speak. However, starting on Thursday, we will be on the official Bills Roundtable channel. That link is pinned at the top of this chat. So do us a favor, go subscribe to that channel so that way you know where to find us. We are experimenting with beginning at about 4 p.m. EST each and every single Monday and Thursday. Let's get into business, but not before we ultimately end up giving a giant shout out to today's proud sponsor. That just so happens to be Picasso's Pizza. Folks, I got to tell you, I have had a lot of pizza in the Western New York area. Nothing compares to our friends over at Picasso's. And get this, say, for example, you're located in South Dakota, Washington, in the corner of New Mexico. You can also enjoy the deliciousness that Picasso's has to offer because they are delivering nationwide. As long as you go to their website, featured right in front of us, picassospizza.net, and hit that nationwide shipping option, they can send pizza to your damn front doorstep. It is a crowd favorite here in Florida when I have some friends over for some football and I give them a taste of good old Buffalo. Go on ahead and give Picasso's Pizza a giant fan welcome. Shout out to Picasso's for being a proud partner of this channel. So, boys, I got to ask you, all right, because I have been battling back and forth in my mind. Why in the hell did James Cook decide to hold in now, right? Like, he showed up at mandatory minicamp. He had the press conferences. He even showed up and was a full participant at training camp. I'm not talking that he wasn't participating in team drills. Like, dude was a full-on participant. He was getting the contact and pads. But then 2 days ago, we saw him in street clothes, and the hold-in has officially begun with his statement repeating the term business over and over and over again. So I got to know what y'all's theories are because I've been just going back and forth trying to find an answer. I'm going to start off with Kevin, first off, as he lets us know what's going on with him since he got booted out due to technical difficulties. What's going on, Kev?
What's going on, everybody? Yeah, thank you, Spectrum. I am a Spectrum truther. I actually think it's better than it gets credit for in a lot of ways. Like, I have fiber, it's pretty affordable, and they failed me the last 5 minutes, but I think it was just an automatic refresh of my mesh router. But Dan, I really think that James Cook is doing this as a power play. The numbers exchanged probably weren't great. I know for sure the numbers weren't where they wanted him to be, obviously. And I think he's saying, okay, well, now I may have to not practice. Like, if you're not going to get me up to the 13, the 14, the 15, I'm going to have to sit out, and we're going to have to see what happens. But this is going to be my power play, and I've seen 20 guys get injured so far at camp. I cannot be one on that list that's going to severely impact my value, especially if I leave with even a minor injury in training camp. So I get it from his perspective, why he would choose to do it right now. I just don't think Brandon Beane's very happy. He's mentioned all the time he's gone 9 years without a sit out. And I think he takes that personally. I really do, for all the deals he's been able to get done, from Khalil Shakir, all the way down the list of name your player. Really, he's gotten them all done. Bernard, Rousseau, Ed Oliver, like Josh Allen a couple of times. He's gotten all of his draft choices done and ready to go. He takes this personally. So hopefully not too personally, Dan. That's the biggest issue I see, and the rest of the panel can kind of give their input on if they think this will be a major issue or not. But I don't think that's great for him to. And then basically Brandon Beane, to finish it off, said, we've given him numbers. He's guys takes two to tango. So that's not ideal right now come August. But then you have national reporters saying the deal's close. So if that's the case, you would think James would want to be there to secure his deal. So it is a weird thing, but ultimately the number can't be right in order for him to sit out. It can't be as close as we think, because I don't think he pulls that power play if they're just a few terms and maybe a couple of bucks off on the AAV.
So what are your thoughts on this, Jake? Why did he wait up until now rather than just starting this from the very beginning if he was that unhappy?
Well, I agree with what Kevin says in terms of power play move, because right now, if you look at the Buffalo Bills, their injury report, it's a long, long list. The players are dropping like flies right now. James Cook sees that. He probably doesn't want to have that happen to him. And you're going into the season, Khalil Shakir right now, one of the top offensive weapons for the Buffalo Bills. He's someone who's currently week to week. So you take that target away from Josh Allen, that really hurts. James Cook, he just had a breakout season last year, over 1,200 all-purpose yards, 18 total touchdowns. He's using that, plus what's going on internally with the Buffalo Bills. With their roster injury report right now, it's building up. And James Cook, if you look at what's going on with the Dallas Cowboys, Micah Parsons is doing something similar to this right now. And I think that he's using that as a power play, just like Kevin touched on.
Zeba, you and I had a conversation, and we're all but celebrating when we heard that James Cook was a participant at mandatory minicamp, right? But now he flipped it upside down, and leverage seemingly seems to be in his corner. Thoughts, man? Why the hell did he wait this long to make his statement?
Does anybody know? We don't know. Brandon Beane certainly doesn't seem to know. In fact, he told the fellas over at WGR that he wasn't aware that this was in play until right before practice yesterday. I think if James Cook were to have held out of mandatory minicamp and then gone in to training camp and either held in or held out from the beginning, it wouldn't have came as a big shock to everybody, because right off the bat in the beginning of this offseason, James Cook made it known. I want to get paid. There's a certain amount of money I'd like to get paid. It looks to be around that 15 million plus range. We don't know what it is at now, ever since Saquon Barkley reset the market. But we do know that he wants to get paid, and it's far more than what the average would be at the position right now. But shows up to mandatory OTAs, shows up to training camp, and just when you thought this was going to be an afterthought, just when you thought it wasn't going to be a distraction, a problem, anything, all of a sudden it is blasted back to the limelight, to the forefront in a way that we didn't see coming. It seems that Brandon Beane didn't see coming. Really, nobody saw coming. I don't have the answer as to why right now. In fact, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me personally, because if you wanted to really make it known the way he's trying to now, it would have made more sense to have done so from the beginning. The other thing that's interesting to me here too is that you hear Tom Pelissero say that it has been sort of talked about as if Brandon Beane and the agent for James Cook are closer to a number than many realize. It never really seemed to be the reality based on the way it was talked about. It never really seemed like they were all that close. So this really brings up a hell of a lot more questions than we just had the other day. are they really that close? And if they are that close, is this why James Cook's doing it? We're this close to the point where I have to make a move now to narrow that gap. Or is it the opposite? Are they farther apart than anybody realized, to the point where I just don't even want to bother showing up and participating in practice if we're going to remain this far apart? The reality of the situation, though, and I know we mentioned power play on here, it all comes down to the fact that James Cook, yeah, you can hold in right now, won't get fined. He's at practice. He's going to make a little over $5 million this upcoming season. Those game checks are going to add up quick. If he's going to decide to bring this into this upcoming season, not only do you instantaneously evaporate what is currently a small NFL contract in comparison to what other guys in the league are making, but you're also kind of sending that message to other teams who might be in play this time next year if Beane and Cook aren't able to reach an agreement that, hey, I went from being all in to all of a sudden not in. No one seemed to know. I thought James Cook was handling this situation, fellas, exceptionally well, and I thought he was only doing a benefit to himself. He wasn't going to screw up his money this year, and he was showing not only the Bills, but potentially future organizations interested that he's willing to do whatever it takes to get maximum value. Now, out of nowhere, this is happening. To me, fellas, the only thing that makes sense here, something has changed within the last week and a half or so that was not the reality at that point. What that is, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I have no idea. But for this to happen as suddenly as it did without anybody seeing it coming, really, you have to think that something major has changed over the last week and a half.
So I have a sense of empathy for the guy too, because this is such a polarizing topic, right? It's two sides. Some of Bills fans are saying, we don't need him. He's terrible. Let him walk. He should honor his contract. But the other half are saying, oh my God, we are going to miss the playoffs and lose 6 more games than what we should have. I do believe that there is a middle ground here. I hate when people act like he provides nothing to this offense. We heard Joe Brady say, hey, look, Cook can be a third down running back. But what we're trying to do is we really want to hone in on this running back by committee style, and we want to preserve him because that is what he is best at. I do think that Cook could be a 3-down back. I do, and maybe some other team. Maybe there's a massive debate on whether or not that an average offensive line would be able to make him as nearly as productive as he is in Buffalo. But I can tell you, I do feel empathetic for the guy, right? Because he knows how the league looks at running backs. He knows that he has no longevity on his contract whatsoever. God forbid he goes out there in training camp and he has some sort of crazy injury. Even if he misses 4 to 5 games with an injury into this season, that's taking away tape from a team that could potentially want to sign him next offseason. So I think this is a situation that we could be empathetic about. So I'm not going to hop on this bandwagon saying, oh my God, say that we don't get this done, then we're going to suck. But I get where he's coming from. I'm not sure about you guys. I've been saying this on my stream. It's kind of crazy to me that some people hone so much in on that $15 million average annual value of contract, right? I don't give a shit about AAV. I don't at all. What I care about is fully guaranteed money. That's all I care about. Because when you're on Spot Track and you're scrolling through and you see that nice little sort of line item that says a potential out, that's what it is. So if somehow that Buffalo found a $15 million AAV contract for him, it was a $45 million 3-year deal, but only 36 of that was fully guaranteed, sign me up. And I guarantee you, even if we gave James Cook exactly what he was looking for at 15, with how contracts have been working in the NFL for the past couple of years, once Gibbs and Bijan Robinson get paid next offseason, that's going to look like peanuts. We're going to look back and be like, holy shit, that was a steal, especially compared to the 20 that Gibbs is going to get next offseason or the 22 that Bijan is going to get. It happens each and every single year. Plus, with the fact that the cap's raising an extra $30 million per year on average as well, I don't necessarily see why people are like, oh my God, man, we can't pay him $15 million a year, as if it's coming out of their own damn pockets. So I'm not sure your thoughts on what you think that figure should be, we'll start off with Kevin on this one. What should the figure be? How should the contract be structured where you would welcome him back?
Yeah, so I'm on the other side of this argument. I know there's a lot of James Cook supporters. I think I'll take the other side. I don't generally like to take the contrarian or the other side of the argument. Like I'm usually more like defense of like, what maybe the more popular opinion. But with James Cook, I've been pretty vocal on not paying running backs. Look, it's no different than when no one wants to spend the 20th overall pick or the 25th overall pick, whatever on a running back. It's pretty similar asset value. The draft choice has a value, right? Here's what I'm mad about. The Bills drafted a player in the late second round. You're expected to get 4 years of value out of that player as a good decision for making a good selection. They're not getting that value anymore. The Bills aren't even getting the fourth. I understand the fifth year when it comes to like first round picks in a fifth year and needing to extend them. That's completely fair. They're not even getting a fourth year right now. So I'm getting a little bit upset to where James Cook was supposed to be making $2 million. The Bills are supposed to get the rookie benefit of this, of making a good draft choice. They're they're starting to be 3-year deals essentially. So you're losing a fourth year. The player's not playing, and he's already got an escalated contract for hitting. So the league said, you did so well, you get $5.5 million for it. And that's one of the largest escalators in the league for his performance last year. I think touchdowns, and we talk about this all the time, I think there's a regression to the mean coming for his touchdown numbers. Like, it's just, quite frankly, whether it's another running back, whether Josh will throw more in the red zone, maybe he'll even run more himself again in the red zone. We don't exactly know where those touchdowns are going to look like, but they're so volatile for anybody that plays fantasy or bets that, like, I really think it won't be 2 touchdowns like it was in his first couple of years. It's really not. I'm really thinking high single digits on his touchdown totals. And the Bills are in a bind. They don't know exactly what to pay him. That's probably the biggest problem right now, to where there's reports on Saquon. I mean, on Saquon money, they're saying, no, that's not true. The Bills are like, look, you probably are worth between 8 and 10 for me. Like, Dan, to answer your initial question, like, I just don't think that they want to go over 10, knowing they need to sign 3 interior offensive linemen. And their offensive line is the true weapon. We talk about it all the time. Where are the Bills' weapons at the receiver position? Their offensive line's a weapon. It's the first time underneath Josh Allen. We talk about it all the time, getting him outside boundary weapons. But this O-line is together, as Deion Dawkins said today. It's like going to Chick-fil-A because you know what you're going to get with their offensive line. And it's extremely talented. It really is in all metrics, in all advanced metrics. There's a lot of pass block win rates, run block win rates. They need to pay the interior offensive line, at least 2 of the 3 of them. So ultimately, I'm having trouble finding where I'm getting, and I agree with the calculated market value you have up there. I just don't believe you can go over the 10.2. Not that I'm going to use that as a science, but that's about where I'm at. You got to give him about, maybe even give him a little more guaranteed. 3 years, $33 million, 3 years, $34 million with 22 guaranteed. I just really can't get over that number. And the Bills, I truly believe, and knowing what I know from studying Brandon Beane, he can't get over that number either. And that's where the disconnect is, where maybe he's willing to throw a couple bones for his production. But the Bills are upset that they were expecting to get value in their 4th year out of a running back in the late 2nd round. Then the Bills were trading down. You guys remember, Z-Bot, where they were trading down, they were grabbing 6th-round picks. It was minor. Like, no one wanted James Cook. Seriously. Like, the Bills were worth risking 6th-round picks, trading back a couple of times where they finally selected him. So ultimately, look, I think the Bills should be rewarded for a great selection, especially if it's not a number that's team friendly. And he's saying, look, I don't care about any of that. Like, you figure out the cap later. I'm worth this much. I had this many touchdowns. I had this much production. I don't really care. So I do get his side of it. But ultimately, the Bills are going to have to decide, like, we have 3 interior offensive linemen to spend. We have the defense that we're overhauling. Like, are we going to retain Bosa if he plays well? Like, there's so many questions that they have on each end. Milano's done. So there's a lot of questions on all sides of this. And like, they can't just go and shell him $15 million because he had a really good year, playing 48% of the snaps. That's an issue, whether Brady thinks it or not. Well, Brady's the same one using Ty Johnson on 3rd down, and he's the same one that likes that Ray Davis goes in and has the same exact production against the Jets that James Cook does against, at the time at least. The Jets were really competitive then in the first, like when he was playing around before they finally tanked at the end of the year. But ultimately, guys, the Bills needed to determine quickly what to do with that $10 million contract. And I don't know who's going to budge here. But ultimately, you need to get value from him. And if the value is on the trade market, then they need to exercise that. But they certainly can't risk him not playing and him sitting out weeks and him not being ready for the regular season. That really can't be an option. So, but neither has given him 15. Like, I don't know. That's going to kill you, even on a short-term deal where you have to escalate guaranteed money, and your cap's even worse on a short-term deal because you can't spread it out like you can on Josh Allen.
Interesting. Folks, so my boy Kevin was cooking right there. I'm not going to lie to you. Z-Bot, thoughts on this? Would you pay James Cook if you were Brandon Beane? And if so, how much?
There's a lot of conflicting truths here. This is why I don't quite understand. And I think Kevin did a good job of kind of marrying the two sides here, which is what I've been trying to do this offseason. I don't get having this staunch belief on one side or the other, like you alluded to earlier, Dan, where all of a sudden, let's just forget what James Cook did last year. All of a sudden, he's not relevant. And because of the fact that he wants to get paid, we're just going to discredit what he did last year, lead the league in touchdowns, another consecutive 1,000-yard year. The Bills hadn't had one from a running back since LaShawn McCoy had left. So we're just going to all of a sudden forget about that because he wants to get paid. Fans hate when people want to get paid, especially when they're coming off of a year where they feel like they're deserving of being paid. The other thing, though, that you have to factor in here is that James Cook is not Saquon Barkley, nor is he out on the field as much as Saquon Barkley is. And this is where I get really confused about coming in on a number that's based off a first ballot Hall of Fame running back who's coming off the Offensive Player of the Year award and had almost double the amount of touches that James Cook had last year. We were looking at average attempts last year. Saquon, number one in the league at 345. You have to go all the way down to 19 for James Cook. He's at 207. This is the benefit the Bills have had with having Ray Davis and Ty Johnson, and of course the ability to run that Josh Allen brings to the table. This is where Kevin's point makes sense to me. You go into year 4 knowing one thing here. I have 3 years of James Cook. The first 2 years were good, but they weren't $15+ million good. Last year was great. I led the league in touchdowns, another 1,000-yard year. We're looking at a 3-year sample size here, and last year unarguably was the outlier. For people to get on Brandon Beane's case for wanting to see another year of James Cook before committing top of the market type money or even at least considering it, I don't see why that's such a bad thing. There's a point in having these contracts lined up the way that they are where you can make these decisions, especially at a position where we have seen throughout the league people be far more scrutinize how much they're going to pay that position as opposed to any other spot. Now, from James Cook's position, I totally get it. You're looking at him knowing this is a position that rarely ever gets their top due, right? And I'm coming off a year where I'm probably never going to have the momentum that I currently have. And I'm going to try to utilize that to get what I think is fair, to get what I think is earned. This is why I've never really gotten on James Cook's case either for wanting to get paid. I've always felt that both sides of the fence here were perfectly reasonable. James Cook, great year. I want to get paid. Brandon Beane, yeah, great year last year. 3-year sample size where I don't think that it equates to that type of money that you're asking for. Let's see how it plays out this upcoming year. And then when we're throwing out these other guys' names too, in terms of comparing how much money James Cook might be owed, the Saquon to me is an outlier. Christian McCaffrey to me is an outlier. Then you start looking at guys like Jonathan Taylor, for instance, or Bijan Robinson. They carry the ball far more for their team. And here's the reason why. They don't have Josh Allen. Jonathan Taylor is the Colts offense. Bijan Robinson is the Falcons offense until we see what Michael Penix has. There's a huge difference between having a star quarterback and not having it. And if you don't, and your entire offense goes through your running back, you're not only going to give him the ball more, you're going to pay him more because you need him far more than any other team with a quarterback like Josh Allen. Now, that's not to say the Bills don't need James Cook. I think to sit here and say the Bills would be just fine without him, would they still be one of the better teams in the AFC? Yes. But would they have an offense averaging 31 points per game like they did last year with a respected run game now that's to the point where you have to almost honor that as much as you do the pass game? Probably not. So it's just a really interesting situation because I do think there's so many conflicting truths on both sides here. This is why when Kevin brings up that $10 million mark, I think 12 million would be the max here. And I'm talking ultimate max to where Brandon Beane caves and said, fine, I'm going to have to do a bit more than I'd like here. 10 million to me seems like that middle ground. 8 million would be Brandon Beane totally won in this situation, right? I'd love to know what the number is. And the one other thing that comes to mind here when I think about this situation, Kyron Williams is in the exact same spot as James Cook is right now. You don't hear a peep about that contract situation. And he carried the ball over 100 times more than James Cook a season ago. So I just wonder if Brandon Beane's looking at it and saying, we'd love to have James Cook. There's nobody we'd rather have leading our backfield. But for the amount of money we'd have to commit, I don't know if I have the sample size yet to ensure that that amount of money being invested is going to end up paying off in the long run.
And so you have a great point because, like, oftentimes I say Cook is more of a luxury than a necessity, right? Last year, maybe not, because I do think that I'm not entirely confident that we would have been able to get through that half a season with Josh Allen with a broken hand if Cook wasn't playing the way that he was. Now, it's still left up for debate of whether or not that Ray Davis would have been able to do the exact same thing that early on into the season. But like Zebot just said, right now we don't need to pay those premium prices for skill position players, as Josh Allen is still very well in his prime. The second that he starts getting to about 33, 34 years old, he's not as impactful on the ground. Sure, then maybe I'm okay with going on ahead and paying a top profile wide receiver number one. I'm way more comfortable with paying a high profile running back. But you do bring up a very interesting point. Jake, if you were the GM, would you give James Cook exactly what he was looking for? Or are you on the same page as our good friends below us?
I don't want to go to $15 million, and it would be really hard to get to that $15 million. I think it depends on the guaranteed rate that you mentioned earlier. But when you look at James Cook and what he brings to this team, 25 years old, he had one hell of a year last year. And I find it hard to believe that you're just going to replace that easily. It's not going to be easy to replace that. And I understand the offensive line for the Buffalo Bills, one of the best offensive lines in football. That's something that gets forgotten about a lot because these skill position players, they steal the show. Everyone wants to talk about the skill position players, the receivers, the running backs, your quarterback. Josh Allen, league MVP. James Cook, he was one of those go-to guys for Josh Allen last year, working out of the backfield. So he's a dual threat weapon. Him and Shakir, those are the go-to guys for Josh Allen. I think Kincaid has the opportunity to become that again with a healthy season here in 2025. But really, James Cook, I think you have to pay him. You don't have to pay him, but it would be really hard to let him go, really hard to let him walk. Would James Cook have the same success with a team outside of Buffalo if he gets that $15 million? Because someone will give him that $15 million. It's just, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of who, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Will he have that same success elsewhere with an offensive line not as good as the Buffalo Bills? Most likely not. But do the Bills want to let James Cook walk and go to Ray Davis, who, Ray Davis, he showed some flashes. Ty Johnson, he showed some flashes. You'd likely have to replace a James Cook as well. That's going to be tough to replace that production because look at the years before Cook came in. You had Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, Breida. These guys didn't really work out the way that you'd like.
You could go inside.
By the way, fellas, even if they landed on 10 million, he would still be tied for the 7th highest paid running back in the league per year. So it's not like it's nothing.
Yeah. So my thing is that I really don't think that he cares about where he falls on the list. I feel like he cares more so of like what is fully guaranteed in my pocket. That's what I think he's truly looking for, is how much is going to be wired to me immediately, ink to paper. But then again, right? Let's stop pretending like this is not particularly a bad thing either. Say that Buffalo does not end up bringing him to the table for a deal. He needs to play in order to earn that $5 million, right? So this is going to be his audition for the next year. I don't really see how it benefits him in the slightest from missing out on game checks. And then number two, walking into next offseason at 27 years old with a full season of no tape and expecting anyone to even get close to what he was looking for, or expecting anybody that could even get close to what we are currently offering him. So I'll see, man. Like, who
Dan,
breaks
into
first?
to
It's a
Zbot's
standard.
point. To Zbot's point, Dan, like let's look at that just one step further.
Yeah.
You have two players, Saquon Barkley and Ashton Genty, who hasn't taken a single snap in the NFL. So Genty's 35.8 million guaranteed. To no random avail, you have Saquon Barkley making 36 million guaranteed, which is 200K more. It's pretty obvious why that would be the number to be the most in the NFL at the position ever for guaranteed money. But those are the two that are kind of above the rest, right? And one of them hasn't even taken a snap. We think he's going to be good, but we don't know. And it's pretty expensive to not know with 36 million guaranteed, although it's over 4 years though. So, the Raiders have some time to figure out how good he is, whereas Barkley's only over 2 years. But then you go down, like, let's forget those two for a second. The most guaranteed money is 24 million with Derrick Henry. We know he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And then you have Christian McCaffrey, who does what he does, Bijan Robinson, another first round, and Jonathan Taylor ringing in around 20 million guaranteed. Look, that's where I came up with the 21 or 22, because that is more than the rest of them. So like ultimately, I don't know where the precedent is for James Cook to almost get Saquon Barkley money. Like even making him the third highest paid running back near the Derrick Henry number is a little bit excessive in my opinion. 2 years, $15 million value. There's nothing even precedent beside the three of them. Like McCaffrey's number is pretty high too. I think he was overpaid though, and especially considering needing like some experimental surgery in overseas. But other than that, like you have the rookies and with Genty and Bijan Robinson, and like Jonathan Taylor is there, but like the number of 20 million guaranteed is the number. And Brandon Beane, I'm going to go on record and say probably offered that. I'm going to assume that he, we're not going to play a sources game because that's gotten some people into trouble lately. And I'm not going to say, sources or who's credentialed or any of those type of things. But all we can do is go off of, I'm pretty sure based on what I've heard, the numbers around 9 and 10 million. And the Bills have a very good case for why that would be the number. Like really, he is at the top 5 with that number. So ultimately, if you're giving him 20 to 22 guaranteed, I don't really, and that's where Brandon Beane's like, it takes 2 to tango. We've probably presented evidence that shows he's going to be a top 5 paid running back. I don't know what to say if he's not willing to take the 4th or 5th highest paid running back and wants to be 2 or 3. Like you can't get into the top 2. It's not going to be possible. So he's going to be 3rd, and that's Derrick Henry money, which is the 15. I mean, Derrick Henry has a lot of evidence and basically holding his team down. I don't know, man. Like 4th on the list is probably the number. And if he's not willing to be 4th on the list, 4th or 5th on the list, Brandon Beane's probably at a loss of saying like, look, I have evidence, you take 48% of the snaps. Like, sure, we could give you a bit more, but we do like what Ty Johnson brings. Like, look, we're willing to make you a top 5 paid running back, 4 to 6. What more do you want from us? Like, this is what we do for Khalil Shakir, who got kind of underpaid, I guess. And Christian Benford, who's, not even on lists, but is analytically top 3. Like ultimately, Dan, like the Bills have probably presented a case that he's like the 4th or 5th or 6th highest paid running back. And if he's not willing to take that, I'm not really sure where they go. Cause he's not going to go in the top 3. It's not possible. So he's got to take the 4th highest money, and that number is around 12. To Zbot's point earlier, that's the number. They're not going to go above that, and that's probably more than the Bills are expecting around the 10 number.
Interesting, very interesting. We have Bills fan coming in with a 99-cent super sticker. Thank you so much. And Jacob Spears is saying, "Imagine going to work and saying I don't want to work. You would be fired." I think he is a brat on this team. Hey, you know what, man?
Well, listen, you know what, Dan, to that point, though, where I think it can come across that way, the NFL is so different than any other industry. Yeah. Like, I understand the mindset here. But what I think, and it kind of goes right back to the amount of money, this is where I think the way the quarterback position is treated has ruined the perception of everybody else in the league in terms of their position. When you look at the revolving door of highest paid quarterbacks, and Dak Prescott gets 60 million, and Tua's right at the top, and Trevor Lawrence is right at the top, and Brock Purdy's right at the top, it's natural for these other players to see Saquon get paid the way he does and Christian McCaffrey get paid the way he does. Then James Cook lead the league in touchdowns and say, "Hey, I'm next up at the mess hall here. Where's my spread here? I'm at the buffet. hook it up. You just hooked up the two guys in front of me and I'm next in line. That's how the quarterback position has been. And it's funny how our mentality, not just us, but basically everyone, you look at quarterback and everyone just throws their hands in the air. Either the guy's not good enough and you move off of, or he's just good enough and you make him the highest paid quarterback in the league. With every other position, maybe other than the defensive edge, of course, we're watching with Parsons right now, and we just saw what TJ Watt got. Other than that, it still seems to have a lot of logic behind it. And what Kevin just said and what I was alluding to, how is it not logical to take James Cook's body of work, go up to him and present him with a top 5-ish so contract and not have that seem reasonable? Yet because of the way I think the quarterback position is paid, unless you are right at the top, everything else just doesn't seem good enough.
Yeah. I mean, look, maybe that's how it's poisoning the minds of Bills fans right now, and running backs and every other position player, thinking that that's the same model. Great point there, man. I could definitely appreciate it. But I'll tell you what, boys, we're just going to have to see what Brandon Beane ends up cooking up, whether or not James Cook comes to the table. I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a lot of street clothes from James Cook for the next couple of practices. The next biggest storyline has to do with the CVS receipt of an injury report that the Buffalo Bills have collected this whole offseason. And I got to ask you guys, I've tried to go back and look at previous years. I'm not sure if it's recency bias or if this is one of the worst training camp periods when it comes into injuries. I acknowledge the fact that you cannot replicate full contact in your individual workouts during the offseason. It's going to take time for you to get back into football speed. But does this year seem different to you, whether or not it's perception or with the actual factual from the past couple of years when it comes into that comparison? Z-Bot, thoughts on this laundry list of an injury report that we've had so far?
I felt the same as you. I've actually resorted to looking at every other team's injury list just to see if this is just something that we happen to be cursed with, because every single day it feels like, hey, add this guy to the list. The best thing that's happened thus far during training camp is the fact that we found out that Maxwell Harrison injury wasn't as bad as it could have been. He's going to be missing multiple weeks, and that was the best thing that we could have possibly heard, just because every day, outside of course, seeing so-and-so look good, or, the defensive line stepping up, these rookies are looking good, whatever else, Keon Coleman flashing, the obvious stuff you're looking for in training camp. It feels like the best possible scenario right now for the Bills is to get good injury news as opposed to getting nobody injured at all. The list right now is crazy. And then when you look at the list of guys that are on that list, that's what's killing me. Khalil Shakir, take him off of this offense, and it's going to look entirely different. You take a look at the wide receiver room in general right now. Josh Palmer's already been banged up a couple of times. He needs to build that rapport with Josh Allen. You have guys coming off the deep ends of the bench at the wide receiver position, taking reps with Josh Allen throughout training camp here. I'm with you, Dan. I feel like maybe it's recency bias, and I would, of course, have to go back and confirm years prior. But this year in particular, it just feels like it's endless. And I feel like based on the pulse of everybody else's reaction to this, it feels the same way too. The only thing that has kept me sane and really not just gone off the rails in terms of my concern on all of this is that I think that if the Bills were playing the Ravens a week from yesterday, I'd have a feeling that list of injuries would probably be at least half the size. I'd have to think that. So right now, that's what's kind of taming my overall concern about the situation. But, we're only, and it's amazing to say, but crazy to say based on what the Bills are facing, we're only a handful of weeks away from that Ravens game being there. What's that list going to look like right now? All I can hope for is that it's precaution. But the fact that we're into the big, like the teens here, the teens and growing on the amount of guys that are injured is concerning. And I know everybody wants to say, oh, training staff, this and this and that. I don't think that has a lot to do with the fact that guys are getting hurt the way that they are. I never understood that, to be honest with you. I just think that it's the unfortunate reality of this sport. And I think right now the Bills are treating it with a bit more precaution than they would at any other time of the year. We'll find out in a month, though, whether or not these Bills are going to have a list like this. And if they do, there's no way you can't be concerned.
So the soft tissue problems are not much of a concern to myself. I think with the two major injuries, number one being Maxwell Harrison, which is certainly unfortunate. Like, we were all really hoping that he could be a day one contributor. I do think that he's going to be taking a similar path to Cole Bishop. where his training camp is going to begin once week 1 is around. And I don't think he's going to be a significant contributor well into after the bye week. But I think we can all be honest, based off of what we've been hearing from reports already, even if Max did not get hurt, if training camp was the final day, I think Tre'Davious White probably would have had that CB2 position locked down in the first place. So crisis averted there. But the only injury that really bothers me is Khalil Shakir with that high ankle sprain. I think that maybe it's me being a pessimist, but I kind of have a terrible gut feeling that we could be without him on week 1 against Baltimore. And even if he is rushed back and he is able to go out, I'm not entirely optimistic that he's going to be 100% Khalil Shakir. Kevin, thoughts on the injury report? So is this something that's a bit out of reality? And what are the injuries that give you the most concern so far?
Look, I find myself applauding when I find out somebody's not out for the season or week 1. So when it comes to like Khalil Shakir, we'll start there because you mentioned the most concerning or one of the most concerning. It's like 4 to 5 weeks. Guy can still play week 1. I'd rather him not play the rest of preseason. Khalil Shakir has shown me enough and has enough rapport with Josh Allen for me to say, thank God he averted anything major, because I know it may linger a little bit, but by all accounts, 3 weeks and he's supposed to be practicing. He should be up and ready for game week and ready for week 1. He does have enough time, even on a more severe high ankle sprain, to where I expect him to be able and ready to go week 1. None of the injuries concern me. I mean, I think part of the wires crossed on the Maxwell Harrison thing was they probably were really concerned about the ACL. Like, there's no doubt about it that they're, Circle of the Wagons may have had some bad information about what they were doing and what they saw. They definitely had multiple tests, though. So originally they were probably concerned more than they wanted to be with the ACL. And maybe it does seem like, based on his Instagram posts and how I know these tests go, like they were initially concerned with it. And maybe they always are, but it does seem that it was more concerned than usual. And maybe there was a source that told him that it was the ACL, but really it was just getting checked in multiple times, or they wanted to double confirm it. But I really do think he avoided crisis too. Like, by all accounts, he could be on the same boat and ready-ish week 1 too. And he gets to learn from Trey White. They're both still in meetings, and they're avoiding more serious injuries to me. So whenever you're I don't want Khalil Shakir to miss time, but he's missing preseason. And to me, he's still in rooms. He's still going to get practice in before the Ravens week. He's not going to have a more severe injury to me. So honestly, I am not concerned with these injuries. The one I am concerned with is, believe it or not, is Curtis Samuel. He's never healthy. And like, ultimately, Balin Spector gets a lot, and he went out today. Whatever. But when it comes to Curtis Samuel, I had to hear all season last year, well, he was out with a toe all off season, and he never got the toe right to the playoffs. All right, fine. I'll even listen to that. He's always hurt, though. Like, he can't have another hamstring and then keep using that as an excuse for not being where he's supposed to be paid as a third-ish receiver. Like, ultimately, he's getting paid $10 million this year. Like, that's marginally less right now with a new deal of Shakir. So, like, you look using Shavers, maybe look at another receiver, using Elijah Moore. I'm done with Curtis Samuel. Like, he like, soft tissue doesn't bother me, but ultimately he is always hurt. And the Bills cannot continue. We're talking about James Cook last segment. The Bills can continue not pay him $10 million against the cap to play half the season, or to not be ready and need like 12 weeks to ramp up. Like, ultimately, he's been in the system already. I don't want to hear the excuses that he didn't have a preseason and he missed it, and that's why he doesn't get the targets. Like, he's going to get passed. And even by, Shavers had a great day today, and like, he's looking to make the team, even though like I was always like, he's just a UDFA. I wasn't as high on Shavers as others. But by all accounts, like, if he can play teams, like, Shavers is going to earn a special team or a roster spot. So, like, what do the Bills do? Are they looking outside of the team? Like I don't know. Brandon Beane does seem like this is the year. He has a lot of pressure on him, in my opinion. And I'm not concerned with any of those injuries. To answer your original question, I'm really not. I think the whole roster could be ready week 1. And the Bills are playing it that way. There is no reason to see anybody else in some of these preseason games, maybe than a series or two from Josh. And ultimately, roster spot 40 to 80 playing to see who can earn some of those special team spots and to see there's tons of DBs that are playing well on the roster, including Hardy and a couple others, Ingram. Like, let's look at these guys. Like, I really don't need to see some from my starting O-line. Like, I don't really need, they played together for years. Like, I really don't need to see stuff from some of these players. And the Bills O-line depth is great. I'm not concerned with any of these injuries. And ultimately, like, Shakir being off the field, like, not great, but as long as he's ready week 1, it almost makes me feel better because to Zebot's point, he is such a pivotal part of this offense. Honestly, him sitting out and then getting ready for week 1 is fine with me. So Dan, I'm not concerned. I think this is a new training staff. Don't forget, like, ultimately, I think that this is maybe a new thing of, and Banged Up Bills he said it's only marginally more than normal. It's nothing alarming. But you know, you got a couple of guys like Landon Jackson who have had multiple injuries, and you got guys like throughout his tenure. Then you got guys like, you know, a couple others that we've talked about. So I'm not overly concerned with, and Dalton Kincaid is the same thing. Like, let's just rest these guys. Let's get them ready. Like, if they need some reps in preseason, fine. But I like that Josh is getting reps with Shavers and with Haas and with a couple of other players, and maybe even some backup O-linemen. It's a great thing to have, Dan, to have this. This depth is really good. I will say that. I do like this depth on this roster.
And so I'm super encouraged, especially by how deep we are. But it's definitely funny that, like, with the list of 40 players that have been on the injury report, like, how Matt Milano has not been on there is something I feel like we could all be grateful for. That's for sure.
T Bass is the other one too. I feel like I know I keep forgetting about. He hasn't been out there for like a week, so I'm hoping to God he's good to go too. Because that's huge.
Please have Ray Davis kick in the preseason.
Yeah, I know.
And so I was talking to Thigh Doctor about that, and like, he's actually really concerned about that injury.
Yeah.
And since it was a pelvic soreness designation rather than just groin soreness, but we'll see. And like Kevin just said, shout out Ray Davis, man. Like, he's got a leg. I had no idea that was in his resume. No one.
Go for 2. Right. Seriously, great time to practice going for 2. Really.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. Why not? Jake, do any of these injuries concern you going into the season?
Well, honestly, a tad bit concerned, because here's the thing. Season hasn't started yet. We're talking practice. Like, in the words of Allen Iverson, we're talking practice. Now, am I overly concerned that this is going to affect us in the regular season? Not too much. I think that this is more of a precautionary thing. No really huge major injury news that's been put out there. Obviously a long list of injuries, but nothing too major. The biggest concern for me would be Max Hairston, obviously a rookie. Those reps are so valuable. The preseason reps, the training camp reps, those are also valuable, especially in the secondary. Obviously, it's a different position when you look at Cole Bishop last year, but you have Cole Bishop, Mike Edwards last season. Both of those guys, they missed a lot of time in minicamp and then some time in training camp, and that really derailed them. It's a big setback, and those reps are so valuable for a young player like Max Hairston. So I'd like to see him get back as soon as possible.
I feel like we're all crossing our fingers there. I feel like we are. Folks, again, I inadvertently forgot to launch the Bills Roundtable channel. I was supposed to sign up 24 hours in advance. However, the good thing is that the actual channel for Bills Roundtable is pinned at the top of this chat. We are live Monday and Thursdays all week for the remainder of the season, unpacking so many different topics. On Thursday, I'm sure a lot of us are going to be discussing the Terrell Shaver show, which has been going on, standouts at camp, hopefully not having to go through any additional injuries being added to the report. But regardless, you can find us always on that channel pinned at the top of this live chat. Zbot, is there anything you'd like to say to the audience before we send them off on their way?
No, appreciate you tuning in for the first episode. Looking forward to joining you every week throughout the season here. Always fun getting the season back in gear, but even more fun this year doing this show with you fellas. So really looking forward to it and can't wait.
It's going to be a great time. Kev, what you got?
I'm looking forward to it, man. I know a lot of people have asked for this show. A lot of people have DM'd me like, hey, is a show? When are we going to air? So I'm pretty excited. And right now I'm bringing all the hottest takes I have to Zbot and to Jake and to Dan on this show right now. So
I love it.
Want to hear me and my stupid analytics or any injury notes that I have. I'm not going to battle Thigh Doctor. He gets mad at me. So I'm not going to argue Thigh Doctor. He gets too mad at me. But other than that, like, I'm seriously excited for for this season. And the show is super cool to have different perspectives from across the Bills land. So this one's always cool. I know I've already had people DMing me that they love the show. So I'm super excited to
I love to hear it.
Continue this season.
I love to hear it. And since we're in the business of entertaining, I will be bringing Thigh Doctor on for a surprise visit for you and him to have conversations. Jake, what do you got? Talk to me.
Listen, I'm happy to be here. This is one hell of a crew we got right here, the Bills Roundtable. It's going to be electric, bringing it every week this season. And huge shout out to everyone in the comments section. None of it's possible without you. Go Bills.
I love to hear that. And then, dude, I swear to you, man, like I get this all the time. Is that an MF Green Bay shirt?
Bulldog shirt.
Silas, you know better than that. Come on. You know better.
Little.
So why I'm wearing this is that we are actually launching our college football show, which is starting in about 35 minutes again on this channel because I didn't grant 24 access to the college football channel. So stick around if you're a college ball person. Me and Jay Tuck will be chopping it up about the recent top 25 coaches poll that just dropped.
And guys, Whittle's a big college football fan. So Whittle, check that out. He loves the draft. So
dude,
definitely make sure
take a special look at who's at top of the poll, by the way. My Penn State Nittany Lions coming into the year at number 1. You love it.
Are they really number 1 right now?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Well, they're expecting, someone's got to lose, Texas or Ohio State week 1. So Penn State's in there by default, I guess.
It's true.
You know what? That's a great take right there. It's got to be Penn State. It's got to be Penn State. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you on Thursday. Go subscribe to that channel. Smash that like button. As you know, shout out to Picasso's. And we will see you on Thursday.